Now, let's explore the 3 levels of abstraction in semantics. These levels help us understand how meaning functions at different stages of analysis, reflecting a speaker's linguistic knowledge. The first level is the utterance, which is the most concrete. It's the actual piece of speech or writing we observe in real life. Think of it as the specific words someone just said or wrote. Moving up a level, we have the sentence, which is more abstract. It's a grammatical unit that we derive from the utterance by filtering out situational details, so it captures the structure without the context. And finally, at the most abstract level, we have the proposition. This is a description of a state of affairs, capturing the core meaning or the underlying message, independent of how it was expressed or in what context. These 3 levels, utterance, sentence, and proposition, are essential for understanding how meaning is constructed and analyzed in language, tying directly into our overall theme of how semantics reflects different layers of linguistic knowledge. Let's talk about what an utterance really is. An utterance is any stretch of talk by one person that happens between moments of silence. Think of it as a complete unit of speech that starts after a pause and ends before the next pause. It's a very specific, physical event. Once spoken, it ceases to exist in the same way. Each utterance is tied to a particular time and place, and of course, to the person who spoke it. That means every utterance is unique to its moment and context. It also has physical qualities. An utterance can be loud or soft, fast or slow, and it can carry regional accents or speech patterns. A key point here is that even if 2 people say the same words, or if someone repeats their own words, these are considered separate utterances. They are distinct because they are separate physical events. Understanding utterances as physical, time-bound events helps us see language not just as abstract symbols, but as real, tangible actions happening in the moment. This perspective connects directly to our overall focus on how language functions as a physical event in communication. A sentence is essentially an abstract string of words that we put together following the grammatical rules of a particular language. It's important to understand that a sentence isn't a physical object or an event. Rather, it's an ideal or conceptual string of words that underlies the many utterances we make. Sentences are language-specific, meaning that what counts as a sentence in English might look quite different in French or German. This highlights how deeply tied sentences are to the structure and rules of each language. Now, while an utterance, like when we speak, has characteristics such as accent and volume, these are features of the act of speaking, not of the sentence itself. The sentence, as an abstract idea, remains independent of how it's spoken. This abstract concept of a sentence is actually very useful because it helps us understand even incomplete fragments we use daily. Even if we don't say a full, grammatically correct sentence, our understanding is still based on this underlying idea of a sentence as a structured, grammatical unit. This connects back to our overall theme: language as a system of rules that shapes meaning and communication. Let's talk about the concept of a proposition, which is essentially the part of an utterance that describes a specific situation or fact. Think of it as the core meaning that conveys what's being talked about. It's important to note that propositions are quite abstract. They're not tied to any particular language or spoken form. They exist independently of how they are expressed. Propositions are either true or false, depending on whether they accurately describe a real situation or fact. For example, if I say, "the sky is blue," that proposition is true if indeed the sky is blue. Now, an interesting point is that different sentences can express the same proposition. Take, "John saw Mary and Mary was seen by John." These are different sentences, but they convey the same core idea or proposition. This idea extends across languages. For example, the English phrase, "I am cold," and the French, "J'ai froid," are different sentences, but they express the same fundamental proposition. Recognizing this helps us understand how meaning can be consistent even when expressed differently in various languages. Connecting this to our broader theme, understanding propositions allows us to see how meaning relates to facts, and how language, despite its diversity, can convey the same underlying truths across different forms and languages. Let's explore how these concepts are interconnected and how they compare. First, it's important to understand that these ideas exist within a hierarchy. One proposition can be expressed through multiple different sentences, and each of those sentences can be realized by countless utterances. This highlights the flexibility and complexity of language. Next, when it comes to truth values, they apply directly to propositions and statements. However, sentences themselves don't necessarily have truth values until they're used to refer to specific entities. So, context really matters here. We also need to distinguish between thoughts and propositions. Thoughts are private mental processes, what we think internally, whereas propositions are public and accessible to others. This distinction is critical because it allows us to understand that anything said about a proposition can be said about an utterance. But the reverse isn't true. An utterance can have qualities like being loud that a proposition cannot. This overall framework helps us see how language, meaning, and truth are interconnected, and it underscores the importance of understanding not just sentences, but the propositions and thoughts behind them.